This is Flowers on the Stage.
To be a great leader, you've got to be a great follower. Also, you got to be a great listener. So I like to put myself in position to always be learning, whether it be the most remedial or the most advanced. Um, I think that people respond well to positivity, as well as strong affirmations. And so, I think that that kind of leading with grace and love, those things are always at the forefront of my mind of wanting to, just every day, but especially in leading positions, especially musically. I think that um a lot of musicians tend to follow other musicians, and I think that that's a good thing. But if you're not following the right kind of leader, then you can kind of go down this rabbit hole of a place you don't want to be you know
Yeah. I'd love for you to kind of elaborate on what you mean by to be a great leader, you've got to be a great follower.
Well, I think that, in terms of being in a place where you can always be approachable, you could always, be in a place where you're wanting to learn, whether it's through conversation, whether it's through experience. I think that we've got to be in a place of just being receptive to information. And I think like you gotta be able to follow others in ways sometimes where you may know all the things, but still you're in a position where you have to follow. And so I think that that shows that you can be a good leader because you're able to follow those who have more knowledge than you or higher ranking than you in certain instances.
For sure. And things got to be a two-way street, right? That goes a
Absolutely,
long way.
absolutely, absolutely.
I love it. What would you say is the best advice you could share about just like being a collaborator in general and not necessarily leadership?
I'd probably say we got to leave the egos at the door. I think that's the biggest thing when you're coming in contact with collaborating with others, is that you may seem it may seem like to yourself that you've got it all or you know it all, but that's never the case. You always want to be in a position to learn, like I said before, and leaving your ego at the door. Make room. I always say this to musicians that I collab with, especially if it's in a live setting, is that come in and learn the music, whatever the case is. Leave your ego at the door and leave room for God, because there's definitely opportunity for some greatness and some miracles to happen if we check ourselves and don't be so egotistical about it.
If
If big if.
What would you say are the main personality traits that you admire in people that you get to work with?
Honesty is one. uh I think that's really huge, and it's tough sometimes because I feel like some of the most brutal honesty is real love. And I think that honesty is up there as number one for me. Just being able to talk things through, um share about yourself, and being vulnerable is another one. But yeah, I would probably say those are the top two, like honesty and being vulnerable.
Hmm. And what about for an artist to have? Like, what would you say are the most important, like, intangible qualities for someone who really wants to be an artist? That's their thing.
I would say probably staying true to yourself, not trying to be anyone or emulate anything specifically, because I think that what keeps you special as an artist is exactly that. It's you. It's not anything that you're trying to be in terms of someone else or something that you've seen. I always have this saying that, you want to be yourself and stay in your lane because there's no traffic there.
Obviously, that's like a process, right? Like, and we don't just kind of go through puberty and we're fully like ourself, kind of.
True.
Definitely not, when it comes to spreading your wings in a certain discipline like being an artist. I'd love to hear with you, like, how did you kind of channel what it means to be you with all that you do?
Honestly, I gotta say my faith in Christ is number one. I try to keep that at the forefront of my mind and really be able to be the best ambassador of love, and really let that implement my everyday speech, my everyday walk, honestly, and kind of lead with that. And so with that in mind, it took a while for me to get there to even like have that mindset. And so, one of the things I really try to do is just try to be honest with myself, number one. But I think that really getting to a place where you can hone in on your own specific skills, really, really take the time to develop yourself. Um, and, really have transparent conversations with people who are like-minded, or will give you sound advice. I think that's major. There's a lot of people that we can come in contact with who are very fluff and surface, and I feel like that's not you could hold those people in the space of that exactly, but I feel like to grow and to really come into yourself, you kind of got to really do some digging into you, look yourself in the mirror, have those tough conversations, and also have those transparent conversations with people who you trust and who will tell you the truth.
And those are some of the most fulfilling conversations to have.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. I thank God, honestly, for some of my core day one friends who know me as just Isaac. They don't know me as the performer. They don't know me as the stylist or whatever the case, whatever hat I want to wear on that day. They just know me as Isaac, and they're quick to tell me the real stuff, and that's exactly how I want to. Those are the people that I want to have around me to not even necessarily stay humble, but to just stay real.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
In each episode of Flowers on the Stage, we'll be featuring an organization whose mission we want to amplify. This week's featured organization is Front Porch Coffee Shop, our new favorite coffee shop here in Lakewood, Colorado. Front Porch is a nonprofit supporting local businesses, hosting community events, and allocating proceeds to the Underground Teen Center Youth Program. Stop by and give Front Porch Coffee Shop a try, whether you're visiting Red Rocks or if you're based in Denver. And to nominate a future featured organization, message us with a link to the organization you'd like to nominate. Now back to the episode. Well, hey, talking about drumming, talking about even your style, like I'd love to hear if and how you keep yourself from falling into like repetitive patterns. Like it can be so easy to fall into routines with performing, with anything. And like, how do you break out of that mold and keep things fresh and unique, both like with drumming, but just kind of in life too?
Well, I think that, being multifaceted and being able to dive into different genres and scenes is major. One of the things I know, I play in a, people would call it jam band, but I see us as way much more than that, because each one of us has different backgrounds and different influences that, we all put into one soup, and then it becomes what it is. But I think that really just, diversifying what you see and what you hear and what you ingest, all the things from, I'm a huge scenic guy. So I love scenery, things that just look, aesthetically beautiful, whether it be a sunset or, the moon hitting the water at night, or, stuff like that. I think I try to get inspiration from that kind of stuff and then sort of implement it in my music. And so I'm a very rhythmic kind of person, as you probably guess. But I growing up in New York City, there was so many things I feel like my ear was so keen to, whether it be the train tracks that are just going and people's rhythms while they're walking to that, or people honking their horns, or just sounds of the city. Those things come into play when I'm putting sticks to drums. Honestly, I think about those kind of rhythms. So, I try to just listen to different music. That's really huge. I think that's one way to keep yourself diverse and stylistically, and just be open. Just be open to new things. It's funny because when I first joined the band TAUK, I had never really played that much. Well, people call it math rock, if you will. But it just was fusion. I mean, I never really had done more of that. I was more of a backbeat player, so like funk, hip hop, gospel, R&B, soul kind of stuff. And so I tell the story all the time about how I actually learned to listen to the talk music and actually ingest it. I used to put on my favorite movie and turn off the sound and then put a talk song on of it. So when I'm in rehearsal or I'm in a show and I forget if the song is new to me, I see the scenes in my head. So that means that, I could translate it to what part of the song I heard at the time. So I just, just being out there, kind of just being weird is the way to go.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I mean, I try to always go back to my roots. I grew up playing gospel music with my family. My mom taught me how to play drums. She plays organ. My dad plays bass. And so I think that having that influence and at an early age sort of introduced me to having a really great ear. And so, anything that I could probably hear once or twice, I could probably play it depending on what it is. So I think that I always revert back to, even just practicing. I'll go play some gospel music or I'll play some R&B or play something like that. So then I could translate to whatever I put it to after that. If I want to put it to a rock band and have a feel of an R&B, but it has different melody over it, it has a lot of different things in there. So I just try to listen to different things and just implement it in what I'm doing.
And we love it.
Yeah, man. It's a good time.
So, talking to kind of a rock star right now, you've had all kinds of accomplishments, whether that's performing at legendary venues, big crowds, collaborating with incredible people, what have you. I'd love to hear what you've learned ultimately gives you the most fulfillment. It's like around whatever success you've had, what's actually most fulfilling for you.
Honestly, being a vessel of love through music and impacting people that way positively, I think is probably the best fulfillment that I've had and will continue to have. When you get those stories of, hey man, I saw you at this show and I was going through this and that, and you guys really, really blessed me, really, really got me through. Or, hey, bro, I got your drumstick from this show and I met my girlfriend that day and now we're married, or whatever the case may be. Those kind of testimonial things are really what allows me to continue to want to do it, number one, and as well as like really feel honored to be chosen to be a vessel of love through music, because I mean it's one of the only things in the world that no matter what you see, no matter what language you speak, no matter what culture you're from, music is always going to be a thing. No matter, I mean, even if it's different kind of genre of music, it's still music. And so to be sort of the armor bearers of love and just like beauty, language, all that stuff, like to be able to have that, like I'm orchestrating those things. So, that's always truly a blessing. So I think, having those testimonies from people and really impacting people's lives is probably the best answer for that for me.
I'd love to hear kind of what you think's happening beyond the surface in a show where it feels like an hour and a half has gone by in the blink of an eye. And it's almost like people feel healed from this concert.
Well, yeah, I mean, it goes to something I was saying before, is that it's just a universal language, and being able to, and I mean, music is truly therapy for everyone in a lot of different ways. For me, it's funny because I don't have any tattoos, but I thought about getting that as a tattoo. Music is therapy for life, because it really does heal you. Allows, like, there's so many situations in our daily lives that you're like, we'll throw on a song or something that you've heard a song back in the day, or whatever the case, like it's gotten you through. I feel like that hour and a half of music, that could really change the trajectory of someone's life. And honestly, I use those same, that same hour and a half to maybe get through and work through some stuff that I've gone through. And so, I think it just being a universal language and a universal healer. I think that's just amazing. And so, it's crazy to say that, we're we're setting this scene, and we're setting a precedent of what's happening like sonically. But I mean, that's really the reality of the situation, is that sometimes we're really just setting the atmosphere for great things to happen. And so they happen across the board, whether they be on stage with me and whoever I'm playing with, you know, or it's someone in the crowd, or, you know, I've seen beautiful and amazing things happen while I'm on stage. It, like, I've seen people propose to each other on the floor. I've seen people literally break up fights and start listening to the music and getting engaged into the music. And that's just a testimony to say that, you know, music is literally therapy.
You obviously, you're a
Yeah.
passionate dude. You know, you're jazzed up, fired up about what you do. But, you know,
Definitely.
kind of talking about the shadow side of that, like when you feel burnout coming on, and maybe not even like artistic burnout, just maybe just general feeling of burnout, like how do you get yourself fired up when you feel that way? Like, or at least how do you manage that?
Um, well, I got to resort back to my faith. It's one of the things that really keeps me grounded. I was just talking to my dad about this actually this morning, about how, you know, when we get burnt out and you know, life just becomes too much, we have to resort back to something that's going to replenish us as humans spiritually, because we're not just physical beings, we're spiritual beings as well. Um, a major thing for me is I'm huge on solitude. And it's funny because people, you know, see me and they talk to me and they're like, oh, you're this huge outgoing person. And I'm like, yeah, I can be, but I truly, truly need my solitude, just to be able to have silence, do some meditating, do some praying, do some journaling. All those things are key to me being the light that people see, whether it's virally or on the stage or in passing, whatever the case. It's those times where it's completely quiet in my house or even in my mind. Because sometimes you don't get to be home and doing it, but I've kind of got it to the point where I've traveled and toured so much that I can channel that in a crowd filled room. And you know, it takes a while to be able to do that, but I think that just allowing myself to, you know, slow my brain down and really get to a centered point where I can, you know, just kind of recollect or gather, like those moments right there, literally I revert back to them in moments of stress, in moments of heartache and frustration. I revert back to sitting at my devotion desk and looking at the clouds and just being like, yep, silence. It feels great. Honestly, it took me a while to get there too, because I was at least in my mid 20s, late 20s, I was just, you know, this social butterfly that wanted to be at every event and show and all the things that just, you know, want to be seen and out there. But I realized that I was pouring out so much to be outside that I was not getting replenished. And so the times where I felt frustrated, you know, I really, really felt frustrated, and I didn't know, I didn't have the coping mechanisms to get me through those things. And I think that journaling is huge for me. I love to write anyway, just because I'm a lyricist as well. But I think that just being able to get that stuff out, you know, just get it out, because if you hold on to it, it literally will materialize to mass in our bodies. And a lot of people don't realize that. But yeah, just like having that moment of take a second, breathe. I do it after every performance. I've learned to, and I've like practiced it, to go in the bathroom. It's like a bathroom thing for me. People call it a prayer closet or whatever. It's a bathroom thing for me, especially after performances, like, because that's one place where no one can actually be with you. So I literally take that second to sit down, or just literally look in the mirror, or put my head down and hands on the sink, and I'm just like, let's get a couple of breaths, and a couple of deep breaths, and intentional deep breaths. And then it's those moments that I'm like, okay, I got this. Let's go. Let's go do it.
It's so interesting how silence, like we can have this part of our brain that just wants to resist it. Like, you know, we all have Instagram right there or something, like,
Yep.
but then at the same time, it can be so great. But like
Absolutely.
we do have this part of us that keeps us from that almost.
Absolutely. I mean, that society is built for us to constantly be on, just be on all the time. And, it's draining. It's definitely draining, especially if you work with, you know, others that you have to like you're leading them, or whatever the case, you have to be, social, or whatever the case. Um, it's definitely draining. I used to work in retail, and I love fashion. So I mean, I used to love dealing with people, love having clients come in and talk to me about, all the styles and all that stuff. But then I realized, I was like, man, after a long day of doing that for like 8 hours, I don't want to hear a single thing. I don't want to hear a mouse take a piss on cotton. I don't want to hear a thing. So it really took me to like understand the importance and beauty of silence, and in all facets, just being able to center yourself, also musically, knowing. And this is a huge pet peeve of mine, when I go to like open jams or anything like that, when musicians don't know when to stop playing. That's like a big pet peeve for me. I will leave someplace. It's like, yeah, that was cool, but every note in the world was played and no one rested.
That's what open jams are about. That's open jams football.
Yeah, it definitely is. But it's funny because I'll get up and play in some of these open jams, and then I'll try to convey to the musicians what's happening on stage. And I'll say, hey, I'm cutting out. I'm cutting out. And they're like, wait, what? Why you stop playing? It's like, well, it's okay to stop. It's all right. It'll
You
be
know,
okay.
This is Flowers on the Stage, a podcast about being creative and finding success. To support it, please check out our sponsors, New Belgium Brewing and TAUK CBD. And now, back to the episode.
if you don't mind me asking, what would you say is your biggest self-doubt?
Self-doubt. Well, I don't know. It's weird for me because I don't know. My parents really, really instilled like super, super major confidence in me and my sister. So, there's a lot of things that I aspire to do and want to do, but I hardly ever have any self-doubt because I feel like I could do all things through Christ. And I feel like, if I don't know it, then I'll try to learn it. But I also there's a part of me that's like, what, how serious is whatever I'm trying to do or put my hands to do? How serious is what's the main objective of me wanting to do this or wanting to learn more about this? So yeah, I don't know. It's self-doubt. That's a good question. I need to like really think about that one. You're gonna make me write that down actually. Because
Yeah, I'm trying to think for myself too, like what I would say. It's
that's
interesting. Well, what is the main objective of what I'm pursuing? And like
Mhm.
I think back to pursuing the wrong main objectives, thinking I wanted something when actually there was this like underlying thing. Yeah, I mean, hard for me to answer that for myself too.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it's like I said, I mean, I feel like I'm well capable within my mental capacity to try to pick up things that uh, even like learning different languages and all that. If I really put my mind to it, I probably can get it. It would take a while, but that's a great question. I'm gonna really dive deep into my journal on that one. Thank you.
Dude, thank you. Thank you for coming on this. This has been freaking awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you have a child and you get to have one piece of advice that you write and it's in their pocket for
Mm,
the rest of their life, what might you write?
mm. Stay true to yourself. Always pray, and always be honest, even if it hurts.
Hmm. What's something you believe now that you didn't believe when you were younger?
I believe that people's opinions of you really don't determine who you are, or even what you do. For a long time, I mean, as you know, as youngsters, we grow up and we want to be people pleasers. We want to be liked by people. We want to have friends, and you know, that stuff's great. But like, in the reality of the situation, if you keep your circle small with real people, then it doesn't matter, you know, what the masses say, you know. And so I think that people's perception of you is really just exactly that, their perception. For a long time, I was definitely that way. It was like, man, I'm not even just saying it to myself, but subconsciously, like, man, I want to be liked. I want to be, you know, revered, you know, in that way. And it's like, why do we seek validation through others people when they have no clue necessarily what we've been through or what we're going through currently? And so and that's one of the reasons why I've stopped being a people pleaser a long time ago. And then I see it in some of my friends. I'm like, no, don't be like, no, just let it go. It doesn't matter. It's okay. You know?
Easier to do that outside looking in sometimes, though.
Absolutely, 100%. And I completely agree with you, especially when you haven't taken the time to necessarily be with yourself. And I think that that's really important. It takes a strong, level-headed, secure person in themselves to really understand it doesn't matter. Excuse me, it doesn't matter what people say. It's about, you know, what you feel in your heart, what you know is right, and what you want for yourself ultimately.
What do you think young you would say to you today if they could give you a call?
Oh man, say get your shit together, bro. Get it together. And I mean, it's funny because I know all the things that I would like to do, all the things I could be doing. But you know, it's definitely one step at a time. But I would say that the younger me would be like, all right, let's go. Get it together now. Get it together.
Put on the gas.
Exactly. In moderation.
Well, my last question for you, if there's kind of one main takeaway or just kind of overarching lesson from everything you've been through, your story, kind of what you're all about, what would you say that is?
I would say that, you know, leading with love and grace, because we all need it. We all need it. You know, there's none of us are perfect beings. And so, you know, I always want to be in a place where I allow myself and other people around me to make mistakes, because you learn in those mistakes. If we stop learning as people, then we stifle our evolution. And that's just not what we want to be doing. We kind of constantly want to be progressing, and it's definitely progression over perfection.
Yeah, it's a process.
Definitely.
Well, hell yeah. Isaac, you're the freaking man. This has been so awesome. If you've listened this
Appreciate
far,
you.
we got
Thanks,
a link in the
man.
description. Check
All right.
out TAUK's website, their newest single, Chopped Cheese, with
Chopped
Taz and
cheese.
tour dates, social media, all that good
Yes.
stuff.
Also, if you've never gotten a chopped cheese from New York, you go do yourself a favor and go get one. Go to the corniest, cheesy looking bodega and ask for a chopped cheese. Certain places in New York City will allow you to choose anything in the store, and they'll make a chopped cheese out of that.
Boom. Go get you one.
Go get you
Hey, any
one.
other final words for all the homies and fans out there before we wrap
Oh
this one
man,
up?
just all the social stuff, Talk Band, everything. And Talk Band on your mom's kitchen table. You know, follow me on Isaac Sinclair 423 on Instagram. Isaac Sinclair, everything. Look out for the new Isaac Sinclair music coming out. It's gonna be good.
New Isaac Sinclair music coming out.
Yes,
Oh
sir.
shit.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Well, hey, we'll have all that linked. My man, thanks again for joining me.
Appreciate you, man. Have a